Greetings, adventurers. Welcome back to the channel. It is I, Eric's UK. A little impromptu and unplanned video tonight. I'm sitting here just before bed with my hot cocoa. And I had been Googling D&D 6th. As you probably are aware, if you watch my videos, I'm not a fan of 5th edition. I was not a fan of 4th. I loved 3rd and I loved Pathfinder 1st. Not so much Pathfinder 2nd, which kind of took that D&D 5th route. And I figured, it must be time for them to be doing a new edition. I didn't realise that the one D&D controversy from a while back was to do with this. And so I was like, okay, so basically if we get 6th edition, it's going to be as bad as 5th. In fact, I've seen a few blogs and sort of, I can't say reviews, but you know what I mean, sort of posts where people are saying it's going to be like a 5.5 edition. And I was like, really? Because my gaming group, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I think we're kind of coming to an end of our Pathfinder time. There's I think we probably have done Pathfinder 1 to death. We've been playing that for how long has it been out now? About 13 years? So probably about that. And there's some talk about trying Pathfinder 2. And I borrowed the Pathfinder 2 rulebook and the bestiary from a friend who has them. And I read through them and I thought, what a crock of shit this is. This has taken all the stuff I don't like about D&D 5th and, cranked it up to 11. I don't know what my issue is specifically. I know that when I played D&D 5th over COVID online, bear in mind it was online, so it's not the same experience. Early D&D, basic, first, second edition, was a simple system. All right, first edition was almost unreadable. And when I looked at it a few years back, before selling off my first edition collection, I was like, how on earth did anyone ever run a game using this rule system? It's so badly written. They were basic. You didn't have things like feats and traits and ways of massively improving your character. Not like Pathfinder does, or 3.5. And although part of me kind of wants to go back to classic D&D style fantasy role-playing, because I miss it. I miss that sort of faux medieval thing, whereas now fantasy role-playing seems to be, dungeon punk was the term that came out during the 3rd edition. And that's the direction that fantasy has gone. It looks like what's that show on Netflix that I watched recently? Arcane. If you've not seen that, it's a League of Legends animated series. Really good animated series. But it doesn't look like D&D used to. But it feels like where 4th and 5th have really taken it. It's not fantasy that looks and plays like, what we used to see. I know I'm a repetitive here, but I always compare the look of, say, and feel of like Lord of the Rings and that sort of fantasy as to what I think, how I feel D&D and fantasy role-playing game should be. It's not to say if that's sort of, if this steampunk thing appeals to you, then all, power to you, go for it. But it's not my bag. I don't like it. That's part of getting old, I suppose. For those who don't know, I turned 50 a couple of weeks back, and it's like I'm definitely very much a grumpy old meh now. But yeah, I'm in my mind as I look. I'm coming back to how the thoughts of how D&D used to be when I played first edition and second edition through the 80s and 90s. I want that back again. And the problem is modern fantasy games don't do it. I've gone off track here, but part of this Googling thing, someone mentioned Daggerheart, which apparently is Matt Mercer's replacement, as it were, for D&D, their own fantasy game. And I was never much of a fan of Critical Role. It's all far too much lovey and amateur dramatics. And, obviously it's great fun to watch, and people obviously like that sort of thing. But I hate that sort of thing as a actual gaming setup. I couldn't play in a group like that. And I see a lot of the fifth edition groups, local game store, play like that, and it's just like, oh, good grief. And I took a look at this. There, it got previewed, I think, Gen Con in August, from what I gather. And I've seen some sort of like reviews of the system, and any sort of hopes I had for that have gone straight out the window. Because it still looks, although it's a different system, it uses 2d12, and one's a luck dice and one's a fear dice, and whichever one rolls highest dictates certain things, and it doesn't seem to have quite the same sort of hit point system. And in my initial readings, I was like, oh, could this be the replacement? And then no. And there's an argument to say, well, if you want to play second edition AD&D, do it. Go for it. The problem is, as with anything, trying to get people to play older editions is almost impossible. And I think my gaming group would be the same. That we've all become too too comfortable with the power level and what have you of Pathfinder, which is something that we used to rail against. We even had a guy that we effectively, I'm sad to say it, I mean, real world situations caused him to leave town. It wasn't us, but we kind of almost had to boot him out of the group because he played sort of the way we play Pathfinder now, and we would never. And it just wasn't us. We were not that sort of, use the system to game the game. But I kind of feel if we did go back and play something like AD&D Second Edition, it wouldn't feel right because we have played a system for so long that lets you game the game with feats and abilities and a certain level of twinkiness. It's all part of, times have moved on, games have moved on, how people play, and, I said something similar in a couple of videos back, I think, when I talked about how role-playing had its day. Those of us that played the games years ago, excuse me a sec, those of us that played the games years ago have a different experience and a kind of a different expectation than newer players. And I'm sort of struggling to see where we go from here. Because if my local guys, my regular group, my guys want to go to Pathfinder 2, I hate to say it, but I'm probably going to turn around and say I'm not interested. which I would hate to do. But it's just not a game system like the 5th that interests me. And I know there's things like OSR, I think it is, old school role playing, and I think Goodman Games do a sort of old, first edition sort of style RPG. But again, I don't think I would get my guys to play that. I think the again, words are not coming to my head. In the past, we used to play a lot of different games, and now we don't. We don't have the time between us with work and family commitments and things that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago, when we were really, really going for the whole hog for role playing. And I think trying to find a game that everybody's going to want to play is going to be difficult. And so I kind of find myself at the moment pondering what that means. I don't want to give up role playing. I mean, role playing has dropped off a lot for me. Wargaming has really taken over because I can always get a game when I want one, and I can't do that now for role playing. COVID really hurt our role playing, I think. I don't think we'd be in this situation if that hadn't robbed us of 2 years. Playing for 30, nearly 30 odd years, and then having a massive enforced 2-year gap did not help. I don't really know where I'm going with this. It was just kind of in my head, and I wanted to put it out there. Do you guys have any suggestions? Is there a game system that's modern, i.e. a current contemporary RPG, but one that captures that old style D&D feel without the steampunk element, that has a simpler system that doesn't require whistles and bells like a 2D12 system and stuff like that? I like the D&D system. I like the so-called D20 system. It works so well. So any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. I don't know. It's, as I say, this is just a impromptu, just throw this together before bed sort of video. And I think some of it, I'm going off on a tangent now. So if you wanted to shut the video off, tell me. And go, he doesn't know what he's on about. He's just waffling. Then go for it. But yeah, I just think my gaming needs have kind of changed a bit. And I kind of feel that I'm running to catch up, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm not going to keep waffling. Because waffling is very much what I do. But, so I'm going to bid you good night, everybody. I'll look again in the morning and tomorrow after work if anybody's even watched this and has any suggestions. Pop them down below and let me know. Anyway, thank you for watching. Give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for putting up with me. Take care. Good gaming.